check out my jams. My husband, everything he got me for Christmas was stuff to keep me warm. So here's my new pajamas. I think, and they're matching, so they're definitely too obviously pajamas for me to get away with wearing them to the grocery store. But they are definitely keeping me warm. I haven't needed my electric blanket. Well, this and the fact that it's been like 50 degrees outside every day. I haven't seen a lick of snow. So that's another good reason why I haven't been cold. But in any case, today I want to talk about cinematic influence on the autistic mind. Or in short, how movies impact autism. So I think this is important to understand because of how it affects our own children, but also just because of how it impacted my life and how it might have impacted your lives. So when I was young, I was very socially awkward. And as early as kindergarten, I was targeted, not necessarily bullied, but definitely ostracized. It was evident to those around me that I was weird and not someone to be friends with. So I learned very early on to not interact with others as much as possible, to only answer questions when asked, not overshare, which I fall victim to very much these days, and to keep all my personal interests to myself. So I was managing well enough to get along that way, to get through school without being singled out and isolated and made to feel different. I knew very early on that I was weird, and I accepted that about myself, but I also didn't want it to be advertised how weird I was. So, unfortunately, these strategies I implemented to keep to myself and keep out of trouble, so to speak, had me become very limited as far as social interaction with others. Therefore, most of the socialization that I learned was through observation, and most of that was done through watching movies. Now, movies to this day and all through my life have been heavily influential. As far as the visual aspects, they can leave a negative or positive impact on me. But in short, whenever I watch a movie, it's something that often lingers in my mind for days afterwards. I'll still be thinking of certain scenes, certain songs, certain things that people say, the way I like the imagery, some impactful moment that I wasn't anticipating. These are things that I'll think about or reflect upon or even dream about for days and days after the fact. So that being said, I don't often watch many movies anymore. I definitely don't watch any movies that are emotionally traumatizing. I don't watch any horror movies. I don't like to watch tragedies. I don't really care for comedy because I feel like, between you and me, all American comedy is just poop jokes and fart jokes and boob jokes and situations where the protagonist is made to feel awkward and uncomfortable and cringy. I don't like cringe comedy, and I feel like that's all that American comedy is. So, some British comedy I like, and of course I love anime. I mean, I think every autistic person under the sun likes anime. So, but anyway, I want to talk about the movies though that I watched. So, movie time was very important to me as a child because my mother, who wasn't a very emotional person, she didn't share a lot of affection with me, often would watch movies with me. We'd get snacks and lay together on the couch, and it was important. It was an important ritual to show that there was still love between us, even though there wasn't a lot of it communicated or physically relayed. We did have those bonding moments with the movies. Fortunately, she didn't expose me to many disturbing imagery. Most of the movies she watched was classic golden era movies, musicals. We loved musicals, dance numbers, things with like Fred Astaire and Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, all the classics. So we watched a lot of movies like that. She liked a lot of the romance movies like An Affair to Remember, State Fair, which is a musical that we watched a lot, and Kiss Me Kate, another musical. They're both love stories. So I learned a lot of romantic engagement from the cinema as well. Unfortunately, I didn't really have any type of real world education from my mother or otherwise. I mean, we all know the education we get in health class. It's more of an anatomy education and not really an understanding of the dynamics of relationship interaction. These are things I kind of had to find out through experimentation. And unfortunately, I didn't see any harm in pursuing that experimentation at a very young age. Things started to affect me when I discovered Marilyn Monroe. Also, around the same time, I watched Batman Returns. They just were showing commercials. They were showing a lot of commercials about it, and I was captivated by Catwoman, the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman. I was also very much captivated by Marilyn Monroe. In hindsight, I realized that both of these women, while being blonde and beautiful, also had a very specific way of using their mouths to articulate what they're trying to say, especially Marilyn Monroe. I mean, she made language into a sexual art form with the way that she spoke. And I was spellbound by her articulation. But at the time, I was 13, 14, and, my older brother just came out to all of us as being homosexual. So I started to question whether or not I was as well. I assumed that I had some mental love affair with Marilyn Monroe. I had a large poster of her on my wall in my bedroom, and I would practice kissing her. And Catwoman. I had a poster of Marilyn Monroe and a poster of Catwoman with her claws up and her red lips slightly parted and very kissable. So I would practice kissing these two ladies. I went on to believe that I was lesbian or even at the very least bisexual well into my 30s. It was only then that I realized that it was kind of not the case. And if any of you are concerned, whether or not you're bisexual or not, I feel like the thing that really indicated that I was not bisexual was that I could never find in myself the ability to love a woman the way I'm able to love a man. I can find women attractive, and I think most women out there can say whether or not a woman is attractive. That doesn't make you bisexual. But I could not develop romantic feelings that went beyond a superficial interest with any of the women I encountered. So I realized in my 30s that was kind of a lie I had fed to myself from the beginning, all the way back to Marilyn Monroe. And if you don't think that has a correlation, you are sorely mistaken, because it was shortly after that I started to tell everyone in school, let me take that back. I told a select few in school that I thought I was a lesbian, and they proceeded to tell the whole school. So any amount of friends that I might have had, I lost with that whole revelation. The only friend I continued to retain was homosexual. But aside from that whole sexual exploitation, which could have been any situation could have led me down that path. It wasn't necessarily the cinema, but I will say it was the cinema that led me down the path to being promiscuous and not really understanding the extent of the promiscuity or what that meant. A lot of these movies that I like and that I enjoyed watching often involved a relationship building between two innocent people that by the end of the movie, they are kissing, and there seems to be an unspoken promise that they're going to live happily ever after. But I didn't watch the movies with the artistically crafted sex scenes in the shadows with music playing in the background. I watched the old movies where there were two twin beds in a bedroom that a married couple was sleeping in. Like, there was no full-size or queen-size mattresses in these movies. So when I would get involved in social engagement with people of the opposite sex, or even with people of the same sex, which was very rare, but did occur on occasion, I didn't know where to go beyond that point of expressing interest in one another. And there was a lot of interaction in this way because I was in marching band. And yes, the old one time at band camp trope actually applies sometimes. I was in marching band with a bunch of nerds, so I felt completely at home amongst my brethren. So I was a little bit more myself. The mask came off a tad bit more, and I was able to engage with these people in a way that I couldn't do in a regular school setting. Especially since you spend the whole day at band camp, sun up to sundown, practicing with these same people. I was in the percussion, so we often kind of broke away from the marching band itself and did our own thing. So you get really close and attached to the people that you're in percussion with, which is predominantly boys. Like most autistic girls, I interacted better with boys. I find that I do have a lot of female friends now. I think it's half and half, but most of my female friends are kind of autistic. So I ended up getting involved sexually when I was in 9th grade with a boy that I probably didn't need to. Now, it wasn't his fault. I was the one that kind of pushed everything, but I didn't know how to get close to somebody. I didn't know how to communicate. And so the way I communicated was in a physical sense, which was obviously not the right thing to do. But it took me a long time to really understand how to get to know a guy better outside of physical interaction. And I'm talking about late into my 20s. It took a long time for me to reach a level of adulthood that I could say I've finally grown up. But I still collect toys, so... Unfortunately, these situations also make me vulnerable to predators. Because I don't know how to socially engage with the opposite sex, and I don't know what's appropriate and inappropriate. I didn't understand that I was in a dangerous situation, even after it had already passed. Okay, my phone died, so it's charging right now, but I had to change everything around. So sorry the light is a little jarring, but I wanted to finish this because I'm almost done and everything's fresh in my mind. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, I had an encounter when I was 13, maybe 14 years old. I was at a friend's house. He was a year younger than me, so he's probably 13, I think. And the neighbor was a year older than us. She wasn't there, but her brother was there. Her brother was 28 at the time. So here's this 28-year-old hanging out with a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old. He had no business being there, but I didn't think anything of it. And he sat with me, right next to me on a love seat, while the neighbor played video games. He was playing PlayStation. We all like to come over to his house because I was too poor to own any systems. All I had was an Atari, and he was a cool kid because he even had a computer by that point, so he was really cool. But anyway, he was playing his PlayStation, and I was sitting on the couch with this grown man, this 28-year-old man, and he was rubbing my leg. And I just kind of let him do it because at this point I had already been involved with my boyfriend. I didn't think anything of it. And then he actually excused himself. He said he wanted to go home and looked at me very deliberately, just kind of met my eye and left. And of course, my autistic brain, I was thought very literal of the situation. So I figured he was going home because he said he was going home. So I guess there's a small blessing there because I didn't realize that he was kind of hinting that I should follow him. Had I followed him, he probably would have taken things further. So it's kind of scary to think about because my mom probably had no idea that there was, grown-ass men hanging out at the neighbor's house. And, it's so easy to assume that your kids are safe with the people around you, but it's not the people around you that's the problem. It's the people around you's friends of friends that end up being there, and you don't know they're there until it's too late. And once the damage is done, it's like the scars are on the inside, but they never go away. Now, I personally am not in any way traumatized by this situation. Had things gone beyond where they went, I might have been. There were things that happened to me when I was 12 that went further, at a church camp of all places. And that bothers me. Not that I have trauma about it, but I'm sad for myself, for my youth that I lost, being exposed to such nonsense. And so it just is something that I'm mindful of with my own children. And I think it's so important for everyone else to be as well. And I don't mean for this to be like a public service announcement. It just kind of is crazy how these things happen and how I think every one of us could say that we've either had some sort of experience like that or a close call. And if we don't have one of those stories, then we were in a close call that we weren't aware of. So anyway, I feel like a lot of this occurred because of the exposure I had to the movies I had, like the type of movies that I was exposed to, the messages that they gave, which were wholesome in themselves, but considering my black and white way of thinking and misunderstanding of social cues, I did very poorly in digesting the messages given on those movies, and it could have led to something a lot worse than where it led. So anyway, thank you for watching. I find these videos very difficult. It's hard for me to talk so personally about myself. I guess once I sit down and start, it's not so bad, but I procrastinate terribly to get myself to this point. So if you appreciate this, this commentary, let me know. I certainly don't want to produce something that isn't going to be received or that anyone is, if there's nobody interested. But I think it's at least the 2 videos that I've done now I'm proud of. I think that they're important. And if there's anything else I can think of that I really think needs to be relayed as far as my personal experience, how relaying it might be helpful to others, then I, by all means, will make those videos as well. But In any case, the next video will be a stitching video. I'll give you an update on this crazy stitch along that I'm a part of, and kind of relay all that information to you in my next video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!